In the history of cinema, thousands of movies have created debates. Some shocked audiences, some challenged governments, and some changed the way people looked at filmmaking forever. But there are a few films that became more than just controversial. They became almost impossible to find. Movies that existed, disappeared, and turned into mysteries talked about for decades. One of those films was Maladolescence, getting an IMDb rating 5.5 out of 10 stars. Released during one of the most experimental periods in European cinema, this 1977 film created a worldwide debate about art, morality, and the limits of filmmaking. It was shown briefly, attacked by critics, restricted by authorities, and eventually became a movie surrounded by controversy rather than public screenings. The story behind Maladolescence is not just about one film. It is about a time when directors believed cinema should explore even the darkest parts of human behavior, and a society that eventually decided some boundaries could not be crossed. To understand why this movie became so infamous, we need to look at the era when it was created. The 1970s was a revolutionary decade for European cinema. Filmmakers were moving away from traditional storytelling and searching for new ways to shock, challenge, and provoke audiences. Directors were creating films about violence, obsession, politics, sexuality, and human nature. Movies that once would have been impossible to imagine were suddenly appearing at major festivals. Films like Tango in Paris or Solo or The 120 Days of Sodom created enormous conversations. Some people called these films masterpieces, others called them dangerous. The question was always the same. Was cinema exposing uncomfortable truths, or was it simply crossing lines for attention? During this period, director Pier Giuseppe Murgia decided to create a film about adolescence. The idea behind Maladolescence was to examine the complicated transition between childhood and adulthood, a stage filled with confusion, emotions, curiosity, and the desire to understand the world. The story follows three young characters spending time together during a summer away from society. Fabrizio is a young boy experiencing the uncertainty of growing up. Sylvia becomes someone he connects with emotionally. Then Laura enters their world, changing the balance between them. At first, their days seem innocent. They explore nature, spend time near the lake, and experience the freedom of being away from adults. But slowly, the atmosphere changes. Laura begins introducing psychological games. She creates situations that test loyalty and friendship. The relationship between the three characters becomes a struggle involving jealousy, control, and emotional manipulation. The director wanted to show that growing up is not always a peaceful journey. He wanted audiences to question the idea that childhood is automatically pure and untouched. However, the film's message was quickly overshadowed by its controversial content. The biggest criticism came from the way the movie presented its young characters. Many viewers and critics believed the film went beyond acceptable limits. Supporters argued that the director was attempting to make serious psychological cinema. They believed the film was exploring difficult realities of adolescence and human behavior. But opponents saw something completely different. They argued that the use of young performers in certain scenes made the movie unacceptable, regardless of the director's intentions. When the film appeared at the 1977 Cannes Festival, reactions were divided. Some critics discussed it as a disturbing piece of European art cinema. Others were shocked and demanded that it should not be shown. The controversy quickly moved beyond film criticism. Governments, legal organizations, and public groups became involved. The movie received only limited distribution before restrictions began appearing. Several countries refused to allow screenings, and the film slowly disappeared from official circulation. Unlike many controversial movies from the same era, Maladolescence never received a major restoration or a proper return to theaters. It became one of those rare films that people knew existed but could not easily access. Over the years, the movie developed a strange reputation. During the VHS era, rare copies circulated among private collectors. People searched for recordings, exchanged information, and treated the film like a forbidden piece of cinema history. Its reputation grew partly because of its disappearance. The less people could see it, the more mysterious it became. By the time the internet arrived, discussions about the film started again. Some people wondered whether history had judged the movie too harshly. Others believed its disappearance was exactly what should have happened.
The debate became part of a much larger conversation about freedom of expression. Where should filmmakers draw the line? Should artistic intention protect controversial work? Or are there situations where society has to place limits? These questions continue to appear in modern cinema. The case of Maladolescence also influenced how the film industry approached working with young actors. Over time, protections for minors became stronger, production rules became stricter, legal responsibilities became clearer. The industry moved toward a stronger understanding that creativity does not exist separately from responsibility. Filmmakers can challenge audiences. They can explore difficult subjects. They can tell uncomfortable stories. But the protection of vulnerable people became a priority. That is why Maladolescence remains such a complicated part of film history. It is not remembered as a successful classic or a celebrated masterpiece. Instead, it is remembered as an example of a movie that forced people to ask difficult questions. Was it a misunderstood artistic experiment? Was it a mistake? Was it an example of cinema going too far? Different people will answer differently. But one thing is certain: the film changed conversations about what movies should be allowed to show. Nearly 5 decades later, Maladolescence remains a symbol of the complicated relationship between art and responsibility. Its story shows that cinema has incredible power. Movies can challenge society. They can reveal uncomfortable ideas. They can start conversations that last for generations. But they also remind us that some boundaries exist for a reason. The disappearance of Maladolescence is not only the story of a banned movie, it is the story of an industry learning that the freedom to create comes with the responsibility to protect. And sometimes, the most controversial films are remembered not because of what they showed, but because of the questions they forced the world to ask.